Welcome back again. We continue with the day's conversations, and just as I did tell you earlier, today is all about women's conversations, and we just head over to our second and last conversation this Wednesday morning. We look at what women are doing in the different spaces and capacities of leadership. This, of course, tying it down with the International Women's Day. Right now, I am holding court with Dr. Nyasimi, who is the National Programs Specialist at UNESCO. Daktari, thank you so much for making time today.
Thank you for having us.
And for joining us the program.
Indeed.
And when you say we are machi today, I don't know, it's just something about today and quite interesting.
Yeah, it's quite a coincidence,
yeah.
But it's the celebration of International Women's Day, and we are women.
Yeah,
so.
and I said, you know, on this day, we capitalize on just being happy and celebrating the day and talking about it.
Exactly.
You know, my colleague Victor earlier on said that we'll do this from now till midnight, so why not?
Actually, I mentioned to a colleague that today should be a day to celebrate women and should be given a day off to go and celebrate.
This is interesting, eh? At your day off.
Indeed.
All right, let's just begin with the things that you're passionate, with as a woman. And of course, we'll talk about achievements as we continue this conversation. Indeed. But you're passionate about linking, improving and increasing support to women, girls and youth scientists and innovators. Just talk to me very quickly about how you do this.
Okay, thank you for having us today. And then on behalf of UNESCO, at UNESCO we celebrate International Women's Day, particularly looking at the achievements of women in the different spaces, with economic, social, political. And as we celebrate these days, we like to reflect back on what women have done in the past year, on March 8th of March every year, and then also look at and raise awareness among the public about the importance of achieving women equality and gender equality across all the different economic spheres. And then, of course, we lobby and advocate for gender parity, particularly in the decision making and the political space. So at UNESCO, we do value, and as you know very well, that today's theme is about innovation and technology for gender equality. And at UNESCO particularly, we have different sectors. We have the education, science and the culture. And in all those, we do use or promote innovations and technology to foster peace among men and women across the globe. So particularly for now with today's theme, at UNESCO we try to promote particularly young people and particularly girls to pursue courses that actually relate to both innovations and technology. For instance, STEM, science, technology, engineering and mathematics, as well as science, technology and innovation. That is STEM and STI. So we do this by encouraging young people, particularly girls, who are usually left behind in science subject, in engineering and mathematics, to ensure that they pursue this. As you know, by 2050, 75% of the jobs will be related to STEM, science, technology, engineering. And currently, we only have 22% of researchers across the world being women. So what will happen in the next 30 years? We need to do that. We need to improve the education among girls to ensure that they are technologically ready to actually advance sustainable development goals, fight poverty, and fight climate change as well.
Yeah, I hear you. And as you say, 22% globally, I believe in Kenya that number is way lower.
It is way lower. Yes. Due to our cultural, our cultural practices and all that.
There's just something about culture.
Yes.
Okay, culture is good. Culture defines us.
Yes.
But there's just something about this even the previous guest I had, there's just something about culture and either it being a deterrent to some extent
or a positive thing. As you said, culture is excellent because it defines our way of life, our behavior. We don't want to go again, you go kill somebody. No. But we have rules and guidelines and norms that guide our everyday practices. But culture is a deterrent as well, and culture changes. How fast that happens, it depends on a society. In some of the Western societies, their cultures are evolving so fast. In Kenya and across Africa, we are caught in between, pushing towards development and technology as well as keeping our culture. That is where the conflict comes in. So for instance, like you know, you say that, you know, by 2050 we are going to have 75% of the jobs on technological fields, but at the same time we are finding that parents are not pushing their daughters to pursue subjects that are technologically related. So that is the fallback there. So both are good, culture is good, but at sometimes is a deterrent to development. Yes.
Talk to me about how this uptake has been, because when you mention 2050, it may look like it's a far-fetched time, but you realize it's not so far. When you're talking about the Vision 2030, right now we're just counting, is 7 years?
Six.
Actually, you should say 6.
6 years, yes.
Because you don't count the year itself.
Yes.
You know, so that, talk to me about how the uptake has been, even just as what you've gathered as UNESCO, when it comes to some of these, you know, STEM subjects and also STI, this tying down with the theme of the International Women's Day.
Yes. Yes, through UNESCO we do have programs like STEM Camps of Excellence. We have actually two programs, STEM Camps of Excellence, where we go to primary schools, to high schools, to engage with students either on a daily on one-day basis, or even have them for a whole week, where we link them to female mentors who are excellent in their fields of engineering, mathematics, and they actually now sit with them and tell them the importance of pursuing science subjects. Then at UNESCO we have the L'Oreal UNESCO partnerships, whereby we encourage or give scholarships to women to pursue their doctorate or postdoctorate research. And through this L'Oreal, women are able to get funding to engage in innovations and in technologies that either promote women or even just the general population. So we have those two programs currently that are running in UNESCO, and many more as well. In the education, there are other programs as well, like early adolescence programs to discourage women for early marriages. You know, most of the African societies, we have girls getting married as early as 12. So we have programs and working with partners to ensure that girls don't get married so early, and to ensure that they continue with their education. Yes.
From where you see it, when you look at this aspect of mentorship, because also that's what you largely deal with, do you think, aside from some parents not encouraging their children, do you think this is one of those things that has been the biggest impediment, especially as far as women taking up some of these you know, courses or subjects that are predominantly designed or known to be men's?
Yes.
Is it?
Actually, yes, because if you don't have a role model, mentorship is about having a role model, somebody to look up to. If you don't have that, do you aspire to anything?
Clearly.
No. Clearly no. If you don't have women leaders, for instance, Kenya right now has 7 governors. And actually an increase, in 2017 we had 3. Now we have 7 women governors. We have 10 cabinet secretary women. You know, when young girls read about that, they'll be able to know, oh, I can also become a cabinet secretary.
Is it 7 or 10, Dr.?
We have, well, there are 7 cabinet secretary, and then 3 who are actually at the cabinet,
advisory level.
Advisory level.
So
they actually awarded the cabinet level. Yes. So if such leaders, if they go to high schools, talk to girls, even go to informal settlements, let's say like we have the Kibera, the Madare, whole town halls, and just talk to girls about what their journey has been and the opportunities that they can have. Some of these women, when I listen to them, when they're talking about their life journeys, it's so similar to most of us, but they've been able to overcome those hurdles to reach there. So mentorship is a very key, important role for girls. For even you and me as well. You would like to become the head of KBC, why not? So even me, I would like to become the head of UNESCO. I need a woman mentor to let me know that you can do this. At UNESCO, currently our Director General is a lady, and I do admire her because I would like to be in her position. So I would like a mentor to guide me, even though I'm a doctor yet, but I do need guidance to become better than what I am today.
There's a caveat, and I want you to address this before we take that break. You know, you just said that you could be the head of KBC, you said you could be the head of UNESCO, but sometimes you realize, even as you talk about mentorship in that regard, we have had stories that there are some of these mentors who sometimes would see their mentees as a threat. And so even as you talk about, you know, women getting into these spaces, talk about, you know, some of those, if I should say, quote unquote difficult areas that were not ideally known to be women's spaces. You'd get someone who's already there. Not in all cases, in some instances. They've made it there, but you as a mentee, you know, people are different, eh?
Yes, indeed.
Some would see you as a threat. And so then they will not quite mentor you, so to speak, per se, like the correct way. I do not know how you will address this. First of all, I want you to tell me if this is, does it happen? Is it correct? And if so, how does it need to be addressed?
Indeed, you are very right.
So it does happen, eh?
It does happen, of course. Everybody is threatened. Nobody would want their position, you know, to be taken. Yeah. Nobody would want that. It does exist, but I think the biggest deterrence for women is ourselves.
Okay.
Yes, it's ourselves. I've had cases, particularly in the political fields, when a woman is going to look for a political position, you find that other fellow women tell her, who is going to take care of your husband? Who is going to take care of your children? So the negativity that comes out of such women, if you are not strong enough, if you don't have the confidence within yourself, then you'll definitely drop out of that race. But as a woman myself, because gender equality, for us to fight it, we cannot even fight it alone. It's true, we can fight, you know, try to push for our spaces within the society. We do need men to help us also. We need to raise awareness among men. But as women ourselves, we do need to look within ourselves. What do we want to achieve? Gender equality is about equal opportunities to men and women, equal resources to men and women. I
think you should say that again. It's about equal opportunities to men and women.
And equal resources to men and women. And resources can be education, water. I think the previous people were talking about energy. It's equal resources to everything in the society. And for us to achieve that, as you mentioned, we need to bring ourselves up. We need to, first of all, lift each other up. We need to think about what UNESCO calls leave no one behind. So when I see another lady struggling, can I help her? Can I help her compose her CV in such a way that she can actually compete with the men when there's a job interview? Can I help a fellow woman fill in a call for proposals so that she can actually have access to that? Or even a scholarship. You find that most of the scholarships, actually yesterday we were hosting fellows from one of UNESCO Category 2 centers in Iceland, which has trained a lot of Kenyans. So we hosted about 10 fellows at our office there. And one of the things that actually emerged is that when there's a scholarship out there, you know, it's just sent generally. Right? You know, I mean, apply for the scholarship. When a woman looks at it, you see that, oh, I'll be away for 3 years. And you're like, oh my God, I have a 6-month baby. I'm supporting my ill mother. I'm taking care of my father. If I go for 3 years, will I come and find my husband? Or will I come back and find a second wife? So there are all this conflicting information that goes up in our head. And that makes us say, oh, should I apply or not? But when you find a man looking at that call of scholarships, they will apply, and the only thing they need to carry is their briefcase, and they're gone. But a woman, we have all these responsibilities and roles that we do behind the scene. So any institution that has applications or calls for scholarships need to redefine that. Even a call for scholarships, it needs even to say that we can provide childcare for you.
Just hold it there. Because I want us to take a quick breather. We come back and you tell us how we can redefine this. Even from where you see it, how institutions can do this. Just as you mentioned, even just having a platform or an area where you can say you can take care of this child. Perhaps which mechanisms can we put in place in regards to that? And also talk about your book and your achievements, climate actions and gender parity matters.
Thank you.
Time for that breather. We circle back with plenty more of this conversation. Stay put. We are not yet done. I am telling you, the conversation is going on off air just as it was on air, and it's as good as how it was, and we continue with it. Dr. Nyasimi is my guest, National Programs specialist at UNESCO. Daktari, before you took that break, you're talking about that conflicting, sometimes idea or way of doing things.
Yes.
And just giving the example that at times, as a woman, you would let go of opportunities because you're thinking, so then if I have to travel to abroad to take up this opportunity, who will take care of my husband and children?
Yes.
And you sort of like had a structure way in which you can begin thinking about, much as it's not yet there, but you can think about it.
Yes.
That could help this situation.
Indeed.
What is this?
Actually, as I said, it was a conversation we were having yesterday with women fellows who have gone to study in UNESCO Category 2 Center in Iceland. And those ones are geologists. They actually are doing work in the geothermal in Naivasha. So they are geologists, they are natural resource managers, they are land restoration experts. And we found that the scholarships, the way the scholarships are structured to increase women, even if it is science, even history or whatever field it is, they are structured not to favor women. As I said, a scholarship, you're just going as an individual. But that depend on them. They are children, they are parents, they even sometimes grandparents, they are brothers and sisters. And the way with the women we are biologically structured, we have a caring nature. And if we change the way our scholarships are to ensure that when a scholarship is offered, it actually gives an opportunity for a woman to be able to carry along her husband, to carry her children, and even have an extra stipend, that money she can send back to the family, back home. So we need to really think about the scholarships, particularly for science and technology subjects. Those take long years. Doing experiments, getting a PhD can take 6 to 7 years.
You can imagine.
That's a long time.
That's for the STEM and STI.
Yes, that's a very long time. So imagine a woman staying away from the family, from her children, from that long, without seeing them, having an opportunity to come back to the family and all that. When a woman sees such an opportunity, she will say no. For a man, it's easier, as I said. He will quickly pick the suitcase and travel.
But other things,
yes. But a woman, we need to think, to give something extra than just the scholarship for tuition and accommodation, but to think about providing childcare for them, childcare support for the woman as a student.
Yes. And what you're saying is really good ideas. The implementation, but as you're saying, these are thoughts and ideas, and what prevents even institutions and organizations, those offering scholarships, from beginning to mull over some of these ideas. Just before you go to the publications that you've authored and co-authored, there's also again this question of, as we talk about institutions and organizations just providing that conducive environment, because when you say this, it cuts across, because you can't talk about women and talk about men, and the vice versa is correct. We know the Teacher Service Commission is so far, as the knowledge that I have, that at least the institution that has increased even leave days for both men and women from 14 to 21 for men, 60 to 90 for
maternity leave.
Exactly, for women. And also Safaricom at least has that specific area where women can breastfeed and all. From where you sit, how can we increase this? Because it's just so much so to say, let's provide conducive environment, but it's remaining as a talk. As a conversation.
Unfortunately, Kenya, probably across most of the African countries, we are really good in writing policies and strategies.
And we have legislated almost everything.
Exactly. Implementation is the problem. As you said, within an institution, particularly for women scientists, have to spend so many hours in a lab, doing research, innovating things. We do need childcare spaces where they can even bring, their nannies, provide spaces for the nannies, provide spaces for the children, be able to take maybe 1 hour break after 2 to 3 hours of working, go see the child, breastfeed the child within that space, then go back to the lab. We are lacking that. So we do need probably an affirmative action from the government to ensure that happens.
So there needs to be more than just what we say in regards to that. Because I remember there was a time, was it in 2019 or 18, where it really did cause an uproar. Like, can we have breastfeeding centers?
Exactly. And even now, it's even an issue of women breastfeeding in public. Yet it's a natural biological process.
I am telling you.
Exactly. So if we can have those breastfeeding spaces, you know, they're calling nurse stations.
Yes.
UNESCO, I've seen them at UNESCO there. We have nurse stations where mothers can go and actually they pump the milk and keep them, then take it home in the evening. But can we have the children there with us? The children do need their mother, you know, staying away for 8 to 12 hours per day away from their child. The psychological effect on the child and the mother as well. As much as I want to pursue my, you know, my career in science, my career in, you know, technology, engineering, I do need this other social life as well. If I can have my child with me at workplace, that will be good.
And you know, we can't say that we can't say that you need to sacrifice one at the expense of the other. Because as I keep saying, if you're competent enough,
yes,
and you can do it, as long as the level playing field is leveled enough,
yes,
then I mean, why not?
Why not, exactly. Indeed.
All right, let's talk about the publications that you've authored and co-authored, numerous of them in the field of climate change and gender equality. And I'm realizing that climate change is really coming a lot.
Yes, I think we are burying our heads in the sand with relation to the impacts of climate change.
Okay.
Right now, Kenya, you can even see there was a warning from the Kenya Meteorological Department that between the hours of 11 and 3 p.m. do not stand outside in the direct sun. You'll get dehydrated and the temperatures are so high. This is going to continue unless we have measures in place and technological measures in place to curb this the changing climate. But the impacts of climate change on men, women, children, indigenous people, marginalized people, people with disabilities are all different.
Wait,
we have to think of that.
So let me just get it. So it cuts across different demographics.
Yes.
It's different.
Yes. And we use that term to mention intersectionality. Okay. Let's look at climate change in terms of intersectionality. We have men. Even within men, there are different ones. There are those ones who are working in informal sector, those ones living in urban, high-income areas, those living in low-income areas that are probably subjected to flooding. Look at women. We have widows. We have single mothers. We have elderly women. We have women who are chronically sick. We have women lactating mothers. So even within that, there are all these different groups. So it's a question of understanding what are the impacts of climate change on these different categories of people? What kind of resources and opportunities do they have to mitigate or to adapt to the climate change? And as well as what kind of access to opportunities or even decision-making platform do they have? Are they able to, go to the Ministry of Environment or the Climate Change Directorate and tell them, hey, we have these technologies for climate change. For instance, we have this, indigenous knowledge for climate change. Are you able to help us, scale it up to among other indigenous communities or not? So most of the women, particularly women, youth, people with disability and the elderly, do lack resources to adapt to the changing climate. And the impacts of climate change from flooding, to drought, to high temperatures, to salinity, particularly around the coast, and all those, like hailstones and all those, they're affecting women more. Because women, the roles and responsibilities of women within the society. Kenya is an agrarian economy. That means agriculture. We are dependent on, our farming, raising our livestock and all that. Most of the activities are driven by women. They are done by women in the rural areas. So such women, if there is a climate change, there is drought, like for instance right now, they don't have irrigation. They don't have irrigation. They don't have additional sources of income that they can use to buy food. What happens to them? We have increase of depression among the women. They can't feed their children, they can't feed their families. So climate change is causing a huge problem, not only from food insecurity to mental health, to increased gender violence within the home states.
Let's take on that gender-based violence issue just for a moment. And you realize that right now, even as talk about the drought and famine that has ravaged over 24 counties, you can imagine more than half of our counties just grappling with the issues of drought. We are equally reporting increased cases of gender-based violence. And sometimes one cannot really tie, the similarity between gender-based violence, particularly amongst women, and the drought scenario. How would you describe this? How are they related?
Okay, for one, you know, with drought, there's lack of food to begin with. Access to water, there's water shortages as well.
Yes.
What will happen in a homestead? You find that providing for food in the homesteads are mainly the responsibility of women. If she can't produce that, the men will somehow... I'm not saying the men are not also impacted. They are impacted. If they are not able to go out there and bring income for the women to buy the food, so there's an issue of emotional turmoil between the men and the women at the same time. So what happens? They lash out. You can't support your family. You're actually emasculated. Climate change is emasculating men. They're not able to support their families. So the only way to lash out, to get out of this vent, goes to gender-based violence. And who faces that? It's the women within the homestead. Yes.
So this is actually the relationship. You know,
there's the relationship there. It may not be that direct, but it is. Yes. And I'm glad that Kenya right now is actually embracing mental health discussions, providing mental health access to people, because climate change is going to cause a situation whereby a lack of food for children, a lack of food for people, and of course we'll go maybe more stealing within the household and all that, or as we mentioned now, more violence.
And you see, it was so important for me to ask that, because I remember there's a local station that actually did quite a similar conversation, and they were dubbing it gender-based violence and climate change, and there was quite the uproar because there was lack of the proper understanding. So then when we talk about climate change, why are you bringing gender-based violence into this conversation? And you realize when we talk about GBV, it's not just about women alone, it's actually both men and women, but for the sake of this day.
No, actually, it's good to talk about gender instead of just even women.
So it's because holistically, you say?
Yes, it's holistically. If a woman was depending on a man to bring food into the homestead, and he's not doing it, chances of the woman, you know, physically attacking the man or even emotionally. As I said, climate change is emasculating men. They're feeling they're not able to, you know, their role as the head of household, they're not able to support the families. So they're feeling emasculated. And what happens, their self-esteem goes down. And if you have a strong woman in the homestead, she can actually have gender violence with the men as well. Let's not rule that out.
So this is actually, it cuts across.
It cuts across. But the most people affected are the women.
And that's why that had to come out. And the way it did. So then what can we do? Because even as you talk about climate, you know, action and climate change, you realize you're still dealing with it. How many times have we said, Dr. that when you look at the African bloc or the African continent, we only emit about
0.01%.
At most, it's 3 to 5%.
No, that's too high.
That's too high?
0.2. Seriously, 5% is too high across Africa. Yes.
But then we bear the brunt of it. And over time, there's been the conversation about the Western countries supporting the African countries. But that has been just meandering across. We're not really seeing this support. So you realize we are stuck with this. And just looking at what we are currently being affected with, Kenya, look about the other countries, Ethiopia.
The Horn of Africa countries.
Drought has ravaged these countries.
We are headed into the 5th year.
Yes, the 5th cycle. And the ripple effects, we can't overlook it. So that in the interim, what do we do? It's here with us. We are dealing with it. These cases, we might continue reporting them for as long as we might not even say. So what do we do now?
And that's an excellent question, because today's theme of International Women's Day is about innovation and technologies. To address climate change, we need innovations and technologies. For instance, at UNESCO, we have, you know, within the science sector, we have we focus on water. Are there technologies or innovations for harnessing, you know, rainwater? Because when you're going to have rain sometime
that's like water harvesting?
Rainwater harvesting. There are technologies for that. We're going to be having rain in the next 1 month or 2. Rainfall is going to come. What will happen? No tapping of, no harvesting of that, no storage of that. Yet there are technologies to do that. Then we'll probably have floods, and then that's another crisis.
I just don't, first of all, allow me to butt in, because sometimes even I just do not get it. We are reeling with drought issues, and you're talking about even water scarcity and water shortage. Has this government talked about construction of dams, 100 to be very specific, in this year alone? And we said we're going to be having rains in the next 1 month.
1 month or less. I think it's already raining in Nyeri County.
We'll be reporting floods at the same time. All right. I don't know.
Indeed, I know it's difficult.
Yeah.
And
just keep on.
Kenya as a country is also not tapping on the potential of groundwater.
Okay.
Yes. At UNESCO, we do have, we do study monitoring and assessment of groundwater. And Kenya and across Africa, we can tap onto that. And groundwater, we can actually, it will be fresh, good water, both for domestic use as well as agricultural irrigation scheme. I think the president mentioned that they're going to revive the irrigation scheme.
Yes.
And we hope that it will not just be a white elephant again, that we ensure that there will be food produced in those, irrigation schemes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then the other issue of, food security. There are climate smart agricultural practices out there. Can we, as breeders, those are scientists, they're breeding, like the Kenya Agricultural Livestock Institute, they are breeding drought resistant crops or drought escaping crops and all that. Can those seeds be disseminated to farmers in time, and in time? Then provision of early warning and climate information.
Yeah.
Let farmers, even the smallest one down on the ground, receive information when it is going to rain, how much rainfall we are going to get this season, what type of seed to grow, so that they have this information, and in the next 1 or 2 weeks, with farmers are prepared.
Yeah.
Even you and I, we need to be prepared. We know that in the next 2 months, if we get the information from the Met department in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on what they predict, we can start building, harvesting rainwater when it comes.
Yes.
Maybe buy this, 10,000 liters, put it in our household, and harvest rainwater.
Good
So we
ideas.
need that information. So it can happen both in rural as well as urban centers as well.
I hear you.
Yeah.
We have 3-4 minutes, about 3 to 4 minutes to exit this space.
Okay.
And now that we're talking about the solutions, I want to just pick your brain on the tree planting.
Okay.
And you can respond to that very quickly, Dr. Because it is a good idea.
Yes.
The vision
indeed.
of the 5 billion
15 billion.
by 2032.
Yes.
2027, we're talking about 5 billion. Very good. But off air, you're telling me, where is the land?
Indeed, we did do our calculations in our UNESCO office there.
Yeah.
A good tree requires about 10 or 20 by 20 meters size. Yeah. And when we calculated the 15 billion, we found that it will require more than half of Kenya, the land size in Kenya, to plant those trees. Yet agricultural land takes half of that already. Okay. Then we have now the cities, of course, and the housing and everything. So where are we going to put those 15 billion trees? We need to think. Saying 15 billion is a great initiative. I don't have a problem with that. We do need tree cover for carbon sequestration. Even when you have tree cover, this heat will not be feeling it. However, we need to think of spaces where we are going to put that. We are going to do reforestation programs, agroforest program. There's urban forestry issues. There's peri-urban spaces. There's even marine ecosystems. Let us rebuild our mangrove trees along the coast that have been cut down for charcoal. Let us put them there. So let's think about where we are going to put these trees. Yes.
Let's think about it.
And see how to involve women.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones who need the trees most than the men, because the trees give us, the timber, the firewood, the fruits from those trees for our nutrition. Yeah. So let's think about women when we are thinking about this tree planting.
The idea is good, but in the implementation process, there's a lot that needs to be done.
Yes, indeed.
I hear you.
Indeed.
Thank you so much, Dr. for your time. Highly appreciate your valuable inputs into this conversation. Just also making us understand how we can tie, these issues to this International Women's Day and why it is important for us to even be discussing some of this, very key and pertinent issues.
Yes.
Asante sana.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Right. I have been speaking to Dr. Mary Nyasimi, who's the National Programs Specialist at UNESCO. Definitely also what has formed Center of Organization, just looking at basically what women are doing in their spaces of leadership, what they're doing to advance the women's agenda on some of these key and very pertinent issues that we deal and grapple with as a nation, as a country. Good place to end this conversation, and ultimately good morning, Kenya. From me and on behalf of the entire team, Asante sana. We now sit ground for Parliament, coming in a short while.